We're going to talk about circle graph, but before we talk about circle graphs, let's go over our previous lesson, which was summarizing categorical data. You say, what? I mean percents. How to find the percent and generalizing something. Also, it could be called relative frequency. The table shows the number of each type of performances at an arena. So you have musicians, sport events, comedians, dancers. Summarize the data using the mode. What does mode mean? Mode is the most response. Sport events had the most response. What fraction and decimal represent the relative frequency of performances by musicians? If you look at musician, there are 14 performances by musicians. But what was the total? If you add up 14 to 26, that's 40. 4 plus 6 is 10. That's 50 performances. So out of 50 performances, 14 of them are done by musicians. So that's what percent is that? What is the percent again? Per 100. So it's per 100. So how do you turn 50 to 100? You multiply, you build it up by 2. So it's 28%. So 28% of the performances at an arena are done by musicians. So let's do a survey. So to make a circle graph, you need a survey. You need some data about something. So what happens if I ask people, what is your favorite fast food restaurant? And here are the responses. Let's say 7, 8, oh, it's out of 20 students. 2, 1, that's 15, 16, 17, 18, and 2 again. So at McDonald's, 7 out of 20 students like McDonald's, 8 out of 20, 2 out of 20, 1 out of 20, 2 out of 20. This is a small sample size. A sample, if you take a sample, is you, instead of asking a whole bunch of people, a whole group of people, you just add a certain number of people, and from them you're able to generalize what the whole group like or dislike. So, taking what we got from that, where's my clicker? Let's see. In McDonald's, 7 out of 20. This is 8 out of 20, 2 out of 20, 1 out of 20, 2 out of 20. So what is the percent again? What's the relative frequency? I mean, per 100. So you build it up by 5, 35%. You build it up by 5, that's 40%. You build up by 5, that is 10%. You build up by 5, that's 5%. You build up by 5, that's 10%. So as you can tell, 35% like McDonald's, 40% like Wendy's, 10% like Chipotle and Whataburger, and 1% likes Sonic. So what's the decimal? 0 and 3500, 0 and 4000, 0 and 10 hundredths, 0 and 5 hundredths. Be careful, do not write 0.5, that's 5 tenths or 50 hundredths, and 0 and 10 hundredths. Now taking these percentages, you are able to make a circle graph. A circle graph is a graph that shows the whole 100%. Another name for it is percent circle. So the way you make a circle graph or percent circle is you find the center of the circle. Then you draw a line to the top and label it 0%. It's very important that you label the benchmark percent. Like, you always hear 50% off. You always hear 25%. And you always hear 75%. However, we need to partition this. We need to section this off even more. It's up to you. Do you want to section it off by 1%? So do you want to write 100 numbers around it? Do you want to section it off by 10%? 10, 20, 30, 40? Or do you want to section it off by 5%? I personally want to partition it or section it off into 5%. So 5, 10, 15, 20. 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%. Partition this 4 parts. 30%, 35%, 40%, 45%. 1, 2, 3, 4. 55%, 60%, 65%. 70%, 80%, 85%, 90%, 95%, and if you complete the whole circle, part to whole, 100%. So in this survey, out of 100% of the 100 parts, 35% belong to McDonald's. So you start at 0, you go all the way to 35% right here. So all of this is Mickey D's, 35%. Taking out another color. Wendy's is 40%. So 40%, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40%. 40% is Wendy's, my favorite, one of my favorite fast food places. They make the best chocolate dairy dessert. Oh, and chili too. If you cannot do this, if you stop at 35%, let's think about it. It's 40% more than like Wendy's. Do not be the person who sits there and just shade it into, stop at 40%. But this is 40%. But if you partition or section this off, if you draw a line here, that only represents 5%. So it says 40% of the 100 represent Wendy's. So stopping here, you have to add 40 more percent to 35%. That's why I stopped at 75%. The next one, 10% like Chipotle. If I'm at 75%, 10% more like Chipotle. So 5, 10, that would be stopping at 85%. And this one, 5% like Sonic. So 5 more percent like Sonic's. And the last 10% like Whataburger. And let's see if I did this correctly. In this 100% graph, is 35% part of it represent McDonald's, yes. 40% represent Wendy's, yes. 10%, which is part of out of 100, represent Chipotle. 5 out of 100 represent Sonic. 10 out of 100 would represent Whataburger. It is. And this is my circle graph. From a circle graph, you're quickly, I like doing circle graph. I love circle graph. You always see it in newspaper too, in polls, anything about surveys or about opinions, because you're able to see the different parts very quickly. So, for example, I see that Wendy quickly is the most favorite. This is probably the most favorite. And I can see that Sonic is the least favorite. I mean, who wants to sit in their car and eat? That's why I hate Sonics. I wonder if I unconsciously made that the least. Probably did. I hate that place. But they do make great drinks. All right, so let's now answer questions. It's not so much important that you know how to make this. It's important that you can interpret or summarize from a circle graph. Because in Excel, it makes it for you automatically. Microsoft Excel. All right, in this budget, Kara's budget, she spent 50% of all her money on food, 20% on rent, 50% on clothing, 10% on entertainment, and 5% on other. If Kara's budget is $200, how much would you spend on food? Food represents 20% out of 100. Her whole budget is $200. What part of her budget is food? So remember we said part to whole equal percent per 100. So can we build this up? We can build up by 2. So $40 out of $200, or 20%, represent her budget on food. If Kara's budget is $260, how much would you spend on entertainment? Entertainment is 10%. So 10% out of 100, her whole budget is $260. All right, can 100 go into 260? You could multiply by 2.6, but if you don't want to think that way, you could break it down. That's 1/10. Now, can you build it up? By 26, by 26, $26 is spent on entertainment out of $260. If Kara's budget is $300, how much more would she spend on clothing than entertainment? Clothing is 15%, entertainment is 10%. She spends 5% more on clothing than entertainment. So can you build this up? Yes, I can. I build it up by 3. By 3, $15 is how much more she spent on clothing than entertainment. All right, here's another survey. If you ever go to Taco Cabana, they serve different types of tacos with different types of meat fillings. Lengua, tongue, shrimp, camarones, fajitas, or carne, which is beef fajitas or beef, it's called carne asada. It's a beef steak. Shredded chicken, pollo, and marinated pork. Not sure what the Spanish word, puerca. All right, so a total of 400 customers were surveyed. So 400 customer survey in this whole survey. What part, how many customers chose fajitas? 28% of the 100 chose fajitas. So, can you build this up? Yes, I can build it up by 4. Build it up by 4. So, if I build it up by 4, 112. So, let's see. If this was a circle graph, that means 112 customers like fajita out of 400 in all. So, 112 is the answer. What happened in a survey? A total of 350 customers were surveyed. How many customers chose shredded chicken? 8% of the 350 chose shredded chicken. So can you build this up? I don't know how many hundreds go to 350. If you want to do the decimal, it would be times 3.5. But I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to break this down to 450. How many groups of 50 go to 350? Times 7. Times 7. 28 customers out of 350 like fajitas. Oh, sorry, shredded chicken. A total of 450 customers were surveyed. How many more customers chose fajitas than marinated pork? Fajitas is, wait, what is it? Fajitas and marinated pork. As you can tell, people love their fajitas compared to marinated pork. By 8% more. So 8% more like fajitas than marinated pork. Can you build this up? I could multiply it by 4.5, but I'm not. I'm going to break this down. 4 over 50. Now I'm going to build it up by 9. Build it up by 9. 36 customers out of 450 36 customers out of 450 like fajitas more than marinated pork. And we're going to stop right there. So what we learned in this one is you have a circle graph. From the circle graph, you can summarize information from it. A circle graph, it goes up to 100%. So, and then if you can actually break it into parts of a number. So, if it is 100%, and if you can say that there are 100 customers. However, it's never ever going to be that neat and easy where there's 100 customers, so 28% or 28 out of 100 customers like fajita. It's always going to be like a different number, like 200 customers, 250, 300, 500 customers. But now using what you know about percent of numbers and using the percent proportion, which is part to whole, percent per 100, you'll be able to find what the different parts of the whole.